Welcome, my friends, to another episode of Facts Me. I am your host, Stephen Lancaster, where we educate, not fabricate. Today, we're going to discuss, once again, a glaring case of hypocrisy from the Democratic Party, including liberals and the extreme left. Frankly, to me, they are all one and the same, only growing more extreme the further you move left. At this point in time, I personally see three main political categories in American politics: Republicans, conservatives, and hypocrites. The traditional Democratic Party, as it once existed, is essentially gone. The left and liberal factions have merged into one collective entity driven by ideology and selective morality, a form of political hypocrisy that more Americans are beginning to recognize every day. Recently, we witnessed a highly publicized controversy involving Jimmy Kimmel. Most of you are aware that he was suspended from his show by Bob Iger, the CEO of Disney, following his offensive and insensitive comments regarding the death of Charlie Kirk. Kimmel attempted to frame the tragic situation as being politically motivated, insinuating that the murderer was affiliated with the MAGA movement or Republicans in general, an assertion that was false. This is emblematic of a larger pattern, misleading the public to fit a particular political narrative. Bob Iger, a known Democrat, made the decision to suspend Kimmel, not any government authority, not President Trump. Sure, President Trump gave his opinion on the matter. He has a right to do so, just like the rest of us. Yet the left immediately framed this as an attack on free speech, conveniently ignoring the reality. Free speech does not equate to freedom of consequences. This brings us to the fundamental principle that many Democrats conveniently avoid: accountability. When you are employed, your rights are necessarily balanced by your responsibilities. Working for a company comes with policies, expectations, and consequences. If an employee misrepresents facts or intentionally misleads the public, it is entirely reasonable for an employer to act. Bob Iger was within his right to protect his company's integrity, and frankly, I support that decision. Yet the hypocrisy becomes glaring when you look at who the outrage is reserved for. Jimmy Kimmel cried free speech when he was disciplined. But where was the outcry for individuals like Dave Chappelle, Tim Allen, Roseanne Barr, Megyn Kelly, Russell Brand, J.K. Rowling, Hulk Hogan, Kid Rock, Gina Carano, or Tucker Carlson? Many of these figures face severe backlash, censorship, or deplatforming for expressing opinions or exercising their own free speech. And in some tragic cases, outspoken conservatives like Charlie Kirk became targets of violence. This inconsistency is not subtle. It exposes the Democratic Party's modus operandi: rules for thee, but not for me. When confronted, their defense is almost always, "that was different," which in reality it was not. It was the same pattern: suppress opposing voices, control narratives, and shield their own from accountability. A recent and highly concerning example of this was revealed by the powerhouse Google. The company announced that the Biden administration pressured them to censor Republican voices and content during the COVID-19 pandemic and the 2020 election. The government effectively interfered with the free flow of information, a clear attempt to control public discourse. But you won't see any Democrat mention that. They just want to blame Trump for everything, blame Trump for assaulting freedom of speech, when the Biden administration clearly canceled Republicans. He forced Google to shut us down. Let me be clear. This is not theoretical. This is an actual instance of authoritarian behavior where a sitting administration forced a private company to suppress opposition voices. Contrast this with claims Democrats regularly make about President Trump, that he is a dictator or an authoritarian. The facts show a starkly different picture. While Trump's actions were constantly scrutinized, it is the Biden administration and Democratic leaders who have repeatedly engaged in practices that edge toward authoritarianism. Censoring content, influencing media platforms, and attempting to silence dissent. When you combine these actions with decades of scandals involving high-profile Democrats, Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden, and many others, you start to see a pattern of manipulation and entitlement. And yet, a significant portion of the American public still embraces the false narratives propagated by the Democratic Party, often to the point of blatant denialism. And as we've seen recently, former FBI Director Comey, he is being indicted. That's a start. But let's return to Jimmy Kimmel as a case study in hypocrisy. He protested free speech when disciplined for his comments. Yet he has previously championed slogans like, "My body, my choice," and even allowed Disney to fire his longtime friend and announcer, Dickie Barrett, for refusing the COVID vaccine. Even though Jimmy was pushing for people to jump on the vaccine train, he was hiding the fact that Dickie Barrett refused to get it. The selective application of principles is astonishing. Rights and freedoms are defended only when convenient. That's what Jimmy Kimmel does. He plays the sides to ultimately only benefit himself. Remember, friends, this is the same guy who thought it was okay to perform blackface and even use the infamous N-word. Let a Republican or a conservative do such a thing and all hell would break loose. Furthermore, the infighting and betrayal within the party itself are instructive. Take Kamala Harris's recently published book, for example. She openly criticizes former allies, including former President Biden, and reveals personal biases that contradict her public stances, particularly regarding the LGBTQ community. This demonstrates that loyalty and principle are secondary to political expediency within that party. Kamala Harris wouldn't choose a gay running mate because she felt it was too risky, yet claims to support the LGBTQ community. Make that make sense for me. Democrats at their core use people for convenience. When someone no longer serves their purpose, they are quickly discarded and framed as enemies. This behavior is both manipulative and dangerous, particularly when paired with the power to control narratives through media and technology. And to summarize this part, the 2020 election cycle and the COVID-19 pandemic showcased the Democratic Party's willingness to suppress free speech and manipulate public perception. The combination of selective outrage, double standards, and overt censorship paints a clear picture of a party that prioritizes power over principle. The hypocrisy is visible, the consequences are real, and the American public is becoming increasingly aware. I encourage everyone to critically examine these patterns. Look beyond the headlines, beyond the partisan spin, and recognize the consistent behavior: hypocrisy, selective morality, and manipulation for self-serving agendas. Whether through high-profile media figures, tech company censorship, or internal party betrayals, the actions are consistent. Understanding this is crucial for any engaged, informed citizen. The reality of it is, we are seeing direct reflection of the Democrats coming to terms with the fact that they are no longer a party, and they have lost the truly educated American people. Let me expand on that to what I like to call the losers have lost it, and now we can get rid of them easily. It's going to get a lot worse before it gets better, and that is a cold, hard fact. But before I dive into this, let's take a quick break. Hey, my friends, please join me on Facebook at facebook.com/CanYouFaxMe to continue these discussions, gain access to powerful memes, and leave your thoughts and comments. That is facebook.com/canyoufactsme. And that's facts, spelled F-A-C-T-S. See you there. Honestly, I think we would probably react the same in the sense of feeling betrayed or feeling completely humiliated. Where we differ, I think, is how we choose to act upon those feelings. There's a stark contrast between the left and the right. Neither side is perfect. Both sides make mistakes. That's going to happen. We are all human, and none of us are infallible. The Democratic Party is destroyed. It is gone. All that's left is those desperately clinging on to what little thread is remaining. And sadly, those who are clinging on to it are the wrong people. All that remains of the Democratic Party is ignorant, uneducated, celebrity wannabes. And thankfully, more and more people are seeing right through all of that. It's time for Gen X to take control again. It's time for Gen X to educate the younger crowd, our teenagers, our college students. I have grandchildren I care deeply about, and we can't rely on Gen Z or millennials to swoop in and set the wrong things right without our help. In fact, they are massively to blame for what is wrong. And not all of them, but they were programmed. So the big dogs have to come out of retirement just so we can find some sort of peace. The expendables aren't so expendable anymore. In fact, the future of this country depends on us taking back control. The left, liberals, and Democrats are firmly in the denial phase of their own delusion. And what I mean by that is they are refusing to accept the fact that everything they believed and everything they stood for was built on lies. Lies orchestrated by the very people they placed on a pedestal and trusted. Because they are failing to acknowledge and accept their own existential crisis, we should all be very, very concerned. This is when violence and a blind violence of that starts occurring in a blind, heartless, and unforgiving way. This is when they convince themselves that what they are doing is actually justice, when in reality, you and I know it's not. The left have a cognitive collapse. They're having a cognitive collapse. Their mental model of the world is broken. Yet still they believe that world to be very real, but it's not. It's all smoke and mirrors and delusion. For years, the left felt comfortable and justified because of a rigid belief system that was spoon-fed to them and affirmed time and time again. This goes back to what I said in another episode. It's a huge hit to the ego, your heart, and of course, you feel betrayed when you learn that what you are doing is not okay at all. I recommend listening to my episode where I talk about Gen Z being programmed, not educated, and I think you'll get what I mean by those comments. For example, men thinking they can become women. No, they can't. Biologically, they cannot. Sure, they can pretend to be, but they will never truly be recognized as a woman. So anybody telling them that they can or they are a woman is lying to them, which opens up another door about how our society is so desensitized we threw away reason and logic. We just threw it away years ago. But now these people are realizing they were living a lie. And with that comes the true danger. The feeling is profound disillusionment, coupled with cognitive and emotional collapse. The person is experiencing identity threat and reactive anger. It's caused by rigid beliefs and lack of coping mechanisms because they've never had to use actual coping mechanisms. They were always told they were right. As I mentioned a few moments ago, I urge you to listen to my episode entitled, Gen Z was programmed, not taught. That video sets the groundwork for history's largest brainwashing operation. So now we have a portion of society that refuses to face the reality they are being forced to view. The sugarcoating and lies have stopped and reality is hitting them square on. They are living in a dogmatic world rooted in misinformation and biases. This means they are delusional, and you cannot reason with delusion, folks. A person refusing truth is often defending identity, comfort, or social belonging. The cause is a mix of cognitive, emotional, and social factors. Solutions require empathy, patience, and gradual exposure to evidence. Sometimes change is impossible if the person is deeply entrenched. The left can be explained in just one sentence. A leftist is a truth-averse rigidist who defends their existing worldview so strongly, often for identity, emotions, or for social reasons, that they reject reality even when faced with clear evidence. So now, since reason won't work, since logic won't work, and I can't believe I have to say this next part, facts won't work, since their feelings have been made more important than civil reality, we have a wave coming that every sane, law-abiding American should be very scared of. Talking isn't going to work anymore. Action has to be taken. The nicest man in the world, Mr. Charlie Kirk, this generation's Mr. Rogers, was murdered for trying to just talk. But accountability is coming, and we are seeing that with the loss of jobs, respect, or even the willingness from any of us to even listen to their arguments anymore. The left is canceling itself. I don't think we should stoop to their level and resort to violence. Instead, I think the solution is quite simple. We stop listening. We stop acknowledging every insane thing they say or do. We stop shopping at liberal and Democrat-owned businesses. We stop sharing their videos, content, and quotes. We just stop spreading the disease. It's that simple. We silence them by making an impact so large, making an impact so damaging to their ego, that they have no choice but to get with the program of decency and morality or get lost. To silence the left and the liberals, we must pretend they aren't even there. They don't exist. The irony in that lies in the fact that all the left and liberals do is play pretend. We can beat them at their own game. We can pretend they don't exist. Acknowledge and support nothing. Let them destroy each other from the inside. I'm Stephen Lancaster. Thanks again for listening to yet another episode of Facts Me, where we educate, not fabricate. Please find me on Facebook to continue the discussion. Hey, my friends, please join me on Facebook at facebook.com/CanYouFaxMe to continue these discussions, gain access to powerful memes, and leave your thoughts and comments. That is facebook.com/CanYouFaxMe.